In a case that bears an eerie similarity to the famous Norway child custody case, Baby Ariha, born to Indian parents in Germany in 2021, has been in the custody of the German government for close to 2 years now. The hapless parents have been running from pillar to post to get their child back, but the excruciating struggle has so far gone in vain. Now the desperate mother has written an open letter to Prime Minister Narendra Modi seeking his intervention and help in getting the child back. This is how things have unfolded. Ariha Shah was separated from her parents, Dhara and Bhavesh, following an accidental injury that she suffered when she was just 7 months old back in 2021. Subsequently, she was placed under the care of German Child Services in September that year and has remained in foster care for over 20 months now. German authorities had alleged that Ariha's parents had abused her. An investigation was conducted against the parents following allegations of child sexual abuse. However, the police case against them was closed in February 2022 without any charges being filed, and a hospital report confirmed the absence of any signs of sexual abuse. Despite that, Baby Ariha is still in the custody of the Child Welfare Services in Germany, and that organization has filed a civil custody case for the termination of parental rights and permanent custody of the child. Since then, Dhara and Bhavesh have been fighting a legal battle for the custody of Baby Ariha. The government of India has asked for the child to be repatriated to India to a Jain foster home under the supervision of India's Child Welfare Services. The parents say, throw us into jail but repatriate our child to India. This case has many parallels to that of Sagarika Chakrabarti. In 2011, Norwegian authorities took away her two children and placed them in foster care after accusing her and her husband of improper parenting. Actor Rani Mukherjee's recent film Mrs. Chatterjee vs. Norway was based on Chakrabarti's struggle to get her children back. The question is, how can German authorities justify keeping the child in their custody even after the parents were cleared of any wrongdoing? Shouldn't they at the very least send the child back to India? What more can the Indian government do to reunite Baby Ariha with her parents? Amod Kant, let me start with you. Like I said, this case bears an eerie resemblance to the Sangeeta Chakrabarti case of Norway, on which recently there was a movie as well. But talking specifically about this case, it's just mind-boggling that if the German authorities themselves decided not to file any charges against the parents, it means that they were cleared of any wrongdoing, especially when they talked about child sexual abuse. Now, if the parents have been cleared of wrongdoing, what justifies keeping the child away from the parents? And it's been close to 20 months now. Not only have they not returned the child to the parents, they are now seeking termination of parental rights and permanent custody of this child. It defies logic. What is going on here?
Oh, no, I agree entirely that there is absolutely no justification to keep the child away from India, at least, if not from parents. I think the child service authorities of Germany and the court, of course, which has given an adverse order, it seems, they should not keep the child in Germany, at least, now that the parents happen to be in India, I believe, because that's not very clear to me that where the parents are. But then that is how things are. Let me inform you that the child care services have their own ways to judge various situations. Because of my organization Prayas, which deals with thousands and thousands of children, these kind of children also many a times, although we are not adoption agency, but since we are running many homes and a lot of our work goes on with child care services, I mean Child Welfare Committee, Juvenile Justice Board, District Child Protection Unit of India, which are the parallel to the bodies in Germany, I presume. Now, these things happen. These things happen. Now, I have gone through this story. I mean, the entire story, what you shared with me, I have gone through it. I mean, certain things have happened. There are 3 points I find. Number one, that the grandmother of this child, she fiddled with the perineal kind of body part, which is very very sensitive body part, and which of course becomes the point for sexual abuse also. And she did not let the parents know. She did not inform the parents that something had happened and the child had suffered some kind of injury in that sensitive part of the body, and that information was not given, and that there was some bleeding out of it. That is one. Secondly, they have also alleged that the child has a bump on her head, in the sense that while the mother perhaps was handling the child fell down. She was on a top table, and from the child fell and hit somewhere the corner of the table, and there was a bump in the head of the child. And third, of course, appears to be very superficial, that the child had some scratches on her body because the child had some kind of allergic reaction or whatever, which she is suffering even now while she happens to be in the German custody. So now the issue is that these facts were looked into. I mean, where we think strongly about the parents, that all these facts were looked into. And the conclusion was that there was no child sex abuse. I mean, the child was not sexually abused. There was no evidence towards that. So, to that extent, the parents are clear. Negligence could be a part. Negligence could be a part. Like, it happened in Norway, so far as that Chatterjee's case is concerned. Since I'm very closely connected to Norway also. In fact, Prayas had a Norwegian project for a very long time, nearly 10 years they were our partners. I had the opportunity to go across to Norway and see some of the childcare institutions also. I mean, their rules are very rigorous, that I could say. In fact, unlike India, the rules across in these countries, even in UK, for example, where I had a chance to see, Germany is again very rigorous. So, in their rigorous system and their legal requirements being so rigorous, they tend to go wrong, and they tend to come to that situation. They believe, and wrongly so, they believe that, if the child comes back to India, the Indian system cannot look after them. And I would like to say, and from that point of view, if Dhara and her husband, they are approaching the Prime Minister of India, or maybe Government of India, and through External Affairs Ministry, some kind of negotiation could take place. Our systems, the child care systems in India, because of the laws like Juvenile Justice Care and Protection Act,
Right.
which is very rigorous law, I think our institutions, our legal system is now strong enough to take care of child, even if there is a situation of negligence, let us say, and that negligence can be attributed to the parents. This much I can say.
Okay.
Not sex abuse. Okay.
No sexual abuse. There might have been negligence that resulted in this injury to the child. But really, what business do the German authorities have to keep the child in their custody? It's been close to 2 years now. Ashish Pandey, come in here. Now, it's not as if the government of India hasn't tried to intervene in this case in the past. This matter was raised with the German foreign minister when she visited New Delhi last December. The MEA spokesperson, Arindam Bagchi, has said that the child's best interest can be fully realized only when she is in a home country where her socio-cultural rights can be safeguarded. Now, in the Norway case, it was said that there were cultural differences between India and that country, and that is what resulted in that huge misunderstanding. And, the children were separated from the parents. I know this is not entirely a case of cultural differences. There were more serious allegations of child sexual abuse, but then those charges were subsequently dropped. So, as Amol Khan says, at the very least, the German authorities should be repatriating the child to India. Why aren't they doing that? What are, the parents' legal options in such a scenario, and what do you think the government of India can do?
Neha, see, I have slight differences with Mr. Kant here. You see, when such cases happen, most of the time these situations are not permanent situations. As soon as the authority decides that the original problem is resolved, such child are returned to their parents. Now, in this particular situation, you say, as you rightly pointed out, the charges for sexual abuse were never pressed. Even later on, they tried to make it a case of parental negligence. Even those charges were not pressed. So apparently, it is very clear that as per authorities, I'm not privy to what exactly is going on in court fight in Germany, but apparently the case for medical negligence, though they are not pressing those charges, but I don't know on what basis they are trying to press for termination of parental rights of these guys. But if the situation which was prevailing earlier is now resolved, there is no legal basis to keep the child in that facility for special need children. So even interestingly, one more point I would like to bring to attention to our entire nation, I mean, through your channel. You see, this particular agency of Germany, the conduct of that agency, I mean, Mr. Kant may be in awe of the rigorous procedures which they follow, but I was going through one particular resolution which was passed by the European Commission, European Parliament, I beg your pardon. And if you allow me to read from that particular resolution which was passed against this particular agency of Germany, just give me a moment, I'll read in verbatim. This is resolution number 2856 of 2018. And this resolution is specifically against the role of the German Youth Welfare Office. And this clearly mentions that they have received so many complaints against this particular office as far as the cross-border issues related to children are concerned. And one particular point which they mention it's of a grave, it's a very important point, and that was pointed out by the spokesperson for MEA as well.
Okay.
Please allow me to read it.
Very quickly. Very quickly.
Yes, very quickly. I'll take just 1 minute. This resolution reminds the member state, which is Germany in this particular case, of the need to provide the child with the necessary and justified foster care in accordance with the wording of Article 8 and 20 of the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, and in particular to enable continuous child care that takes into account the child's ethnic, religious, linguistic, and cultural identity.
Exactly.
You see,
so, so you're right in pointing out that these differences have been brazenly ignored by this particular agency. And you're saying there are actually many complaints against this particular agency, and there is absolutely no legal basis for them to demand termination of parental rights. At the very least, they need to send the child back to India. In fact, you believe that there is a strong case for the child to be returned to the parents. Well, we're completely out of time, so I'd like to thank Amod Kant and Ashish Pandey for joining us on the show. But let's certainly hope that the government of India can put enough pressure on the German authorities to ensure that this child does not have to remain in the custody of German authorities anymore. She's almost 2 years old now and has spent 20 months in the custody of this German agency. At the very least, it is time that she is brought back to India.